The only thing worse than being Superman and being stuck in a room with a bunch of kryptonite would be showing up to your fantasy football draft unprepared. And in today's video, we're going to be preparing you, dropping my top 40 wide receiver rankings and tiers for the 2025 fantasy football season. Before we get into things, though, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you click the like button down below. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into my top 40 wide receiver rankings and tiers for the 2025 fantasy football season. We begin with the S tier at the wide receiver position with my wide receivers 1 through 3. At number 1, we have Ja'Marr Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, last year was a wet dream for Ja'Marr Chase. He finished as the wide receiver number 1 in PPR and the wide receiver number 1 in PPR points per game, scoring 85.5 more PPR points on the season compared to the wide receiver 2, who was Justin Jefferson. He has had 3 of 4 seasons in the NFL as a top 5 fantasy points per game wide receiver, and his only down season, he was still able to finish inside of the top 12. He was the Triple Crown winner last season. He had the most receptions, most receiving yards, and most total touchdowns at the wide receiver position in terms of efficiency. The guy is incredibly efficient, first in expected points added, 12th in yards per route run, 4th in yards per team pass attempt, and 5th in dominator rating. The Cincinnati Bengals were the second most pass heavy team in the NFL last season in terms of pass play percentage. I do not believe that is going to change in 2025. The Cincinnati Bengals defense is still a complete and utter disaster. They still have one of the best quarterbacks throwing Ja'Marr Chase the ball. So with the team being down late in games, have to throw the ball a ton, with Ja'Marr Chase being one of the best, if not the best wide receivers in the NFL, it would not be shocking to anyone if he repeated as the wide receiver 1. And I believe all of these guys inside the top 3 could be the wide receiver 1 and are all incredibly safe in my opinion. At number 2, we got Justin Jefferson, Jay Jetta of the Minnesota Vikings. Wide receiver 2 on the season last year. Wide receiver 4 in terms of PPR points per game. Now, he's had 4 straight top 5 point per game finishes with all 5 seasons in the NFL. He has finished inside of the top 10. Now, the biggest difference for this season for Justin Jefferson is going to be the changing at guard at the quarterback position, going from Sam Darnold to JJ McCarthy. And while we haven't really seen too much of JJ McCarthy at the NFL level, because he really only played in some preseason action prior to getting hurt, the popular belief and the belief of myself is that even if JJ McCarthy isn't this elite level quarterback, I believe that Kevin O'Connell is going to be able to shape him up to be a good enough quarterback to feed the rock to Justin Jefferson. We all know, again, I don't need to give the Gawk Gawk 9000 special to a guy like Ja'Marr Chase or Justin Jefferson, right? We just know how great the guy is. He was 4th in targets, 4th in receptions, 2nd in receiving yards, and 5th in total touchdowns, 6th in yards per route run, 10th in yards per target, 2nd in yards per team pass attempt, and 10th in dominator rating. I know they have Jordan Addison, they have TJ Hawkinson, they have Aaron Jones, right? They have these other competent pieces on the team, but Justin Jefferson is that guy, and I think you're going to be seeing a ton of Justin Jefferson in the end zone just like last season. Next up, we got CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, last season was definitely a bit of a disaster for CeeDee Lamb just because of the fact that he didn't live up to expectations. Now, was he completely terrible? Of course not. He finished as the wide receiver 8 on the season and the wide receiver 8 in PPR points per game. But based on the expectations we set upon him, the fact that Dak Prescott ended up getting hurt, basically sinking the metaphorical battleship of CeeDee Lamb's season that did end up hurting, but he has had 3 straight seasons inside the top 8 at the wide receiver position. I believe the addition of George Pickens is just going to further help out CeeDee Lamb, and even if there was no help around, you know CeeDee Lamb's getting force-fed the ball from Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is a little bit underrated in my opinion. Last year, we saw CeeDee Lamb 6th in targets, 5th in receptions, 8th in receiving yards, 30th in total touchdowns. He had the 75th highest target accuracy rating, and now him and Dak Prescott are to be able to get the whole summer to work together. Last offseason, there was the contract negotiation where CeeDee Lamb's kind of holding out, but now they're to be able to work in the offseason all summer long, and I just expect CeeDee Lamb to return to form as a crystal clear top 3 wide receiver in fantasy this season. Now we move on into the second tier here, the A tier, with my wide receivers 4 through 9, headlined by Malik Nabers of the New York Football Giants. Now, Malik Nabers, despite the fact that the quarterback position was a complete and utter disaster last season, despite the fact that the best quarterback play that Malik Nabers got, in my opinion, came from horsecock Drew Lock, the guy was able to, as a rookie, finish as the wide receiver 7 in points per game and the wide receiver number 6 on the season. We saw a couple of games last year where he finished inside of the top 10. Week 2 up against the Commanders, he was the wide receiver 3. Week 3 up against the Browns, he was the wide receiver 4. Wide receiver 6 up against Dallas. Wide receiver 9 up against the Ravens. And wide receiver 2 up against the Indianapolis Colts. This is a guy that is going to be seeing so many targets game in and game out. It wouldn't shock me if this motherfucker averaged like 13 targets per game, because the wide receivers outside of Malik Nabers are dreadful, in my opinion, on the Giants. The quarterback play isn't going to be magnificent with Russell Wilson, but anything is better than what we ended up seeing Malik Nabers get last season. And despite all that, he was still able to put up 1,200 receiving yards, 7 total touchdowns, 170 targets, and 109 receptions. I get that there is definitely a little bit of the gross factor when you're drafting a New York Football Giant, but to me, the targets are king here, and Malik's going to see potentially the most amount of targets for a wide receiver in the NFL. Next up, we got Puka Nacua of the Los Angeles Rams, wide receiver 26 on the season in PPR last year, wide receiver 3 in PPR points per game. The reason behind that was because he only played in 11 games last season. He missed the first 6 games of the season with a busted bursa, which is a knee injury that he suffered in the preseason. But when the guy was healthy, he was looking like the Puka Nacua that we saw enter onto the scene in 2023. Back-to-back seasons now as a top 6 points per game wide receiver. And again, when he is on the field, this is a guy that sucks in targets like his name was Kirby. He was averaging close to 10 targets per game. And I get the addition of Davante Adams might scare some people, but honestly, Davante Adams is just going to be able to take away some more coverage for Puka Nacua. They're not going to be able to double, triple cover Puka Nacua, which is a worry for some people for Malik Nabers, but they were doing that last season, and Malik Nabers was mighty fine with that. We have only seen 5 wide receivers hit 500 plus PPR points through their first 28 career games, and Puka Nacua is one of those wide receivers. I trust Matthew Stafford. I trust Sean McVay, and my eyes are not deceiving me. I trust the eye test. Puka Nacua looks like one of the best receivers in the NFL. Next up, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. Now, there was a bit of a scare for some people, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown underwent knee surgery following the 2024 NFL season, but he is fully expected to be ready for training camp. So unless he doesn't show up to training camp, or unless he shows up to training camp and looks a little bit hobbled, and, maybe then we want to back up a little bit, throw that thing into reverse, start to panic, be led astray. But as of right now, that's not something I'm worried about. Amon-Ra St. Brown is Mr. Consistency. If you can get this guy inside the second round, you will be laughing straight to the bank. It feels like wrapping a condom around your wide receiver core. He was the wide receiver number 4 in points per game in 2024. Same thing goes in 2023. And in 2022, he was the wide receiver number 10. Losing Ben Johnson might end up hurting a guy like Jameson Williams. It could end up hurting a guy like David Montgomery, but I believe that will have a little effect on Amon-Ra St. Brown, who again continues to print top 5 seasons. Don't overthink Amon-Ra St. Brown because of the change at the offensive coordinator position, and also don't overthink him because of that knee injury, because it doesn't really seem to be serious at all. Now, I am as much of a doctor as Johnny Sin, so take that with a bit of a grain of salt, but nothing I have read would tell me you need to panic on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Again, 8th in targets last year, 2nd in receptions, 5th in receiving yards, 3rd in total touchdowns. In terms of efficiency, 14th yards per out run, 11th in yards per team pass attempt, 15th in target separation, and 13th in true catch rate. Again, do not overthink Amon-Ra St. Brown, because I think in a lot of leagues, he might end up falling into the second round, and he is a straight steal. Next up, we got Nico Cousin, Let's Go Bowling Collins of the Houston Texans. Wide receiver 23 on the season last year because he only played in 12 games. Wide receiver number 9 in PPR points per game. Back-to-back seasons inside of the top 10 in fantasy points per game. Now, this is a wide receiver room that is completely revamped compared to last season, right? Entering into last year, it's Nico, it's Tank Dell, it's Stephon Diggs, and some people started to get their panties in a bunch. They started to panic on Nico Collins because of that. Now, I didn't do that, but some people did, right? But this year, It's Nico Collins. Tank Dell is out due to that injury, which sucks for him. Stephon Diggs is now in New England. So it's Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Christian Kirk, and Jalen Newell, as well as John Mechie, right? So this isn't a wide receiver core where you're going to magically see Nico Collins disappear like John Cena, where you can't see him, right? And then magically Tank Dell or Stephon Diggs is light things up, right? Because that's not how this wide receiver core is set up. Now, I understand CJ Stroud took a bit of a step down, but even with that step down, we still saw Nico Collins finish inside the top 10 in PPR points per game. This is a amazing wide receiver in terms of efficiency and in terms of the eye test, right? If you just watch this motherfucker play, you can make an argument that he is already a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. 3rd in yards per route run, 9th in yards per target, 7th in yards per team pass attempt, 3rd in dominator rating, and 5th in explosive rating. So even with the changes at the wide receiver core, and even though the offensive line sucks donkey cock in Houston, I am not going to worry about Mr. Nico Collins. So if we're just talking about how these tiers are positioned, the S tier, to me, those are the clear top 3 guys, right? But inside the A tier, is it crazy if Nico Collins finished as the wide receiver 1, or if Brian Thomas, London, any of these guys inside the 8 tier? In my opinion, that would not be that crazy to me. Next up, we got bdge of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wide receiver 4 is a rookie last year, 12 in PPR points per game. He ended up only playing in 7 games where Mac Jones were playing. That makes sense, man. I need to go back to 3rd grade, where Mac Jones was playing. He played 7 games without Trevor Lawrence. Now, some people might say, Dick, if you actually look at the stats, he was better with Mac Jones. So does that mean now that his value is going to tank with touchdown Jesus Trevor Lawrence under center? In my opinion, that is a absolutely terrible argument to be made. The reason why he ended up putting up better numbers with Mac Jones is because the offense realized, hey, we should just force feed the ball to Brian Thomas Jr., right? He is the clear head honcho, the clear alpha in the wide receiver room here. And when they started to do that, we saw Brian Thomas Jr. finish incredibly strong. Only Jamar Chase scored more points from weeks 13 on after the Jags bye week. He was averaging 22.9 PPR points per game. He was special to end the season, and he was the only player to have 500 plus yards after the catch while only having a 10 plus yard ADOT. In terms of his finish in the fantasy playoffs, the money weeks, right, where you won your fantasy league, he was the wide receiver number 1 inside of the fantasy playoffs. I know they added in Travis Hunter, and I like Travis Hunter, but I don't think Travis Hunter is going to take the throne, take the metaphorical king's crown here, and take over from bdge as the wide receiver 1. I feel very confident with what we saw last season. 14th in targets, 12th in receptions, 3rd in receiving yards, 5th in total touchdowns. He was 50th in target accuracy and still put up those numbers. 8th in yards per out run, 15th in yards per target, 9th in yards per team pass attempt, 2nd in dominator rating. They bring in Liam Cohen as the head coach, who I believe is going to make this offense percolate, this offense pop, and I think this is going to be a huge season out of Brian Thomas Jr. Next up, we got Drizzy Drake London to close out the 2nd tier. Wide receiver 5 in PPR, wide receiver 14 in PPR points per game. Now, you're going to see on your screen is his game log from last season. Highlighted are the games with Michael Penix Jr. They obviously end up kind of passing the torch from Kirk Cousins to Michael Penix Jr. at the end of last season. And then we see Drake London finish as the wide receiver 41, 24, and the wide receiver 1 to close out the season. He got better every single week, and he saw more targets every single week. 8 targets, 13, and then 18 targets. Now, it would be ludicrous to assume this motherfucker is going to average like 15 plus targets a game, but he is the clear best wide receiver on this team. I know I am a Darnell, here comes the Mooney truther. I like Darnell Mooney, but we all know when push comes to shove, Drake London is that guy, and it's very clear that him and Michael Penix Jr. are on the same page. Last season, he was 10th in yards per out run, 12th in yards per team pass attempt, 5th in EPA, and 12th in fantasy points per route run, 3rd in targets, 7th in receptions, 4th in receiving yards, and 9th in total touchdowns. I have been a Drake London guy for as long as he has been in the NFL, and I continue to believe in him this season with Michael Penix Jr. under center. I think this will be the best season yet for Drake London. And again, while you can't just extrapolate a 3-game sample size and say, hey, that's what's going to happen in 2025, I really do think the targets are going to be coming hefty like the garbage bag this season for Mr. Drake London. Next up, we move on into the B tier with my wide receivers 10 through 15. At number 10, we have Ladd McConkey. Now we're going to do a bit of an experiment here. We're going to go ahead and head on over to the Fantasy Flock website, and we are going to look at the splits, right? In 2024, weeks 1 through week 9, if you had Ladd McConkey, it wasn't all that good. Sure, he was fine based upon where you drafted him, but he wasn't this clear must-start wide receiver every single week. But then to close out the season, weeks 10 through week 18 is when Ladd McConkey really starts to put it all together. He's averaging 17.2 PPR points per game. So I really do believe that when you can look at a guy's season, especially as a rookie, and you see, you know what, hey, the first half of the season, not so hot. The second half, he looked really good. That is a good indication that that is a wide receiver that has the upside to break out in the next season. Again, especially when you see play out of a rookie wide receiver who is in a wide receiver room where he is clearly the wide receiver one on an offense that you trust with Justin Herbert and with Harbaugh as the head coach. Last year, the efficiency numbers also will back up the fact that Ladd McConkey is very good. He was 7th in yards per out run, 8th in yards per target, 8th in yards per team pass attempt, 6th in EPA, and Justin Herbert had him at 8th in terms of target accuracy with 6.9. Very nice. I like. Shout out to Borat. He was 23rd in targets, 15th in receptions, 9th in receiving yards, and 20th in total touchdowns. So if he is able to get more involved early on in the season, which I believe will be the case with Ladd McConkey this season, they'll be using him early and often. I think Ladd McConkey has that breakout potential to potentially crack inside the top 10. He is my wide receiver number 10. At number 11, we have Rashee Rice. Now, Rashee Rice is going to continue to rise up draft boards due to the fact that it feels as though he is going to be incredibly healthy to start the season. Now, in my opinion, will he be exactly 100%? I'm not sure about that because, again, I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, but he was already a full participant early on in the offseason process in June. He's dealing with no limitations, and all signs are pointing towards Rice being a full go going into week 1. He obviously suffered that terrible injury because Patrick Mahomes ended up sabotaging the team by hit-sticking Rashee Rice's knee. So hopefully that doesn't happen again in 2025. So knowing that Rashee Rice is going to be healthy for week 1, at least assuming that based upon what we know, the path here towards a top 5, top 10 season is as clear as it gets. Now, again, if you just extrapolate a 3-game sample size from the start of last season where he was the wide receiver 14, 16, and 3, where he is seeing 7.3 targets per game, 6 receptions, 72 receiving yards, and he scored 2 touchdowns in 3 games. He only played 6.8% of that 4th game, so we won't even really count that. He didn't see a single target or anything in that game. Of course, the numbers are going to be ridiculous, so you can't just say he's guaranteed to do that every single game because that would be foolish. But if you look even further back towards the end of 2023, he was able to really start up putting up big numbers there. I know this isn't the Chiefs offense from the past where Mahomes going to put up a crazy touchdown number, something unfathomable for most quarterbacks in the NFL, where he puts up a crazy passing yards number as well. But maybe the fact that Rashee Rice is healthy, Xavier Worthy's healthy, they have Hollywood Brown, Travis Kelce, maybe that is what the offense becomes. They do become more pass heavy. They try to rely more on Patrick Mahomes. And again, even with a kind of more limp dick Chiefs offense, Rashee Rice was able to play that well last season. So I've been in on Rashee Rice since his rookie year. And again, unless some report comes out that tells us, oh, you know what, maybe we should be avoiding Rashee Rice, I'm going to continue to bang the drum for him. Next up, we got A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles, wide receiver 20 on the season last year, wide receiver 13 in PPR points per game. But before we talk about A.J. Brown some more and the rest of the wide receivers, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our partner over at Underdog. Underdog has a great offer for new users today. If you sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you receive your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. They are the best place to do best ball drafts this summer for fantasy football. If you don't know what best ball is, it's the best part about fantasy football. It's the draft and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. Underdog automatically puts the highest scores into your lineup for you at the end of every single week. It is a great way to prepare for all of your 2025 home league fantasy football drafts. Their biggest tournament, Best Ball Mania, $15 million in total prizes, $2 million to first place, $25 to enter. They also have tournaments with lower entry fees as well. So make sure you guys check out Underdog, promo code Notorious, or by clicking on the link in the video description to get your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Back on into things here with AJ Brown. Now, he has been a top 12 point per game finisher in the past 3 seasons. So AJ Brown, to me, is a safe bet. To me, he feels to me almost a little too safe. And what I mean by that is I can see Tyreek Hill, who's ranked behind AJ Brown, being the wide receiver 1. I could see Rashee Rice doing that. And you know what? Maybe Ladd does get force-fed. Maybe you could see him doing that, right? But do we think AJ Brown could do that? Now, is he talented enough to do so? In my opinion, yes. I think AJ Brown is an amazing wide receiver. He has the build, he has the speed, and I think Jalen Hurts is a good enough quarterback to be able to elevate AJ Brown to do that. But we have to understand that this is going to be one of the most run-heavy offenses in the NFL, if not the most run-heavy offense in the NFL, like they were last year. And that is going to limit the upside of A.J. Brown to be getting those games where he's seeing potentially 12, 15 targets a game or something ridiculous. There's also a team that's going to be up late in games, icing it with Saquon Barkley. Now, if you're someone that thinks, oh, Saquon Barkley is guaranteed to stub his toe and be out for the season because he's on the Madden cover, then go ahead and give the Gawk Gawk 9000 special to A.J. Brown. Fondle the guy's nuts, metaphorically, of course. But in my opinion, based upon the offense that I project them to have, where they want to be super run-heavy and where the touchdowns are going heavy to Saquon and to Jalen Hurts, to me, A.J. Brown, sure. Do I think he's going to finish in the top 12? Yes. But I just don't see that path towards that league-winning season. Can you draft him? Of course you can, but to me, he's not quite in that A tier, which is why he's in the B tier. Next up, we got Tyreek Hill. And again, let's go back to A.J. Brown for a second. Again, the guy's incredible. 13th in fantasy points per target, 2nd in yards per route run, 4th in yards per target, 9th yards per reception, 1st in yards per pass attempt, right? I don't want to sound like some A.J. Brown hater. To me, it's just how the offense is facilitated that scares me away from really banging the drum heavy for A.J. Brown. Next up, we got Tyreek Hill. Now, if you're comparing the safety of A.J. Brown to Tyreek Hill, it's like comparing going to a fireworks show where you're letting JPP do it versus, you know, a fireworks show where they light it off. Like one of those, you ever seen those like Looney Tunes where they light off the dynamite and it's like 100 feet away and it goes to it? Or like you're doing a Red Dead Redemption heist, you light off the dynamite, takes some time to get there, right? Or you're standing there with a Roman candle pointed directly to your chest, right? Tyreek Hill is very risky when you compare him to A.J. Brown. It is night and day, but Tyreek Hill's upside is the wide receiver 1 on the season. So if you look at Tyreek Hill's career, whether that's in Kansas City or in Miami, last year was his worst season in a while, right? He's the wide receiver 29 in points per game, and his other bad season was his rookie year in 2016, where he's the wide receiver 32 in points per game. But sandwiched in between there is all top 12 PPR points per game finishes for Tyreek Hill. So what's more likely, that Tyreek Hill is washed, or the fact that Jonnu Smith was getting a zillion targets and Tua got hurt was really the thing that ended up catapulting his season directly into the water? Tyreek Hill was sleeping with the fishes. Again, I get Tyreek Hill did you wrong last season. I get Tyreek Hill ended up suplexing your fantasy football team last year, but to me, he still passes the eye test. 13th in route win rate, 14th in unrealized air yards last season. And if Tua does get hurt, knock on wood, we don't refer injuries, of course, that's going to hurt the value of Tyreek. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Mia Malkova, if we end up seeing Tua end up getting hurt, I do think Zach Wilson or Quinn Ewers are better backups compared to last season. Now, again, they're not Tua. Tyreek's going to see that production dip off, but that same thing could be said for a lot of these players, right? If their quarterback gets hurt, it's going to fuck them directly in the ass. So Tyreek, again, 1 down season. I'm not going to panic. I'm still going to believe in him. Next up, we got T. Higgins, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals, wide receiver 17 in PPR due to only playing in 12 games. He missed 2 games with a hammy and 2 games with a quad strain. He was the wide receiver 6 in PPR points per game. Inside of the 12-game season for him, he had 4 games inside of the top 9. The Bengals, like we talked about with Jamar Chase, are terrible at playing defense. It's like, I'm out there as the corner, you're on the D line. We've got another edge rusher, someone else watching the video, right? My fucking great grandmother, who's 6 feet under right now, is playing safety, right? They don't really have that much talent defensively, so they're going to be in scenarios where they have to pass the ball gently down the stream late in the game. Joe Burrow is an elite quarterback. T. Higgins is going to get fed when healthy. 9.1 targets per game, 6.1 receptions, 75.9 receiving yards per game, and he scored a touchdown in every single game outside of 2. He was 5th in red zone targets, 9th in target quality rating, 16th in contested catch rate, 20th in yards per team pass snap, 24th in yards per route run, and 21st in dominator rating. I get Jamar Chase is the wide receiver 1 on the team, but T. Higgins is the 1B, right? 1A and 1B, yin and yang. They can both coexist. We've seen it before at the NFL level, and we saw it last year with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Final guy in this tier is going to be Garrett Wilson of the New York Jumbo Jets. Now, if you drafted Garrett Wilson last year, you got karate chopped in the cock based upon where you drafted him. Wide receiver 10 in PPR, 21 in PPR points per game. Now, if you notice something about every single year of his career, he has had over 145 targets every single year, 153 last year, the season prior 168, and 147 in 2022. He played with Justin Fields in college at Ohio State. I get that Justin Fields isn't Joe Montana. He's not Tom Brady. He's not whatever you want to extrapolate as the best, most elite quarterback in the NFL. He's no Mahomes. He's no Joe Burrow, but he's good enough. The wide receiver room for the Jets is I've said a disaster. It is a wasteland at the quarterback position. It looks like fucking Chernobyl, okay? It is a disaster back in the day, right? Garrett Wilson is the clear alpha on this team. 4th in targets last year, 5th in receptions, 11th in receiving yards, and 20th in total touchdowns. He was finally starting to catch on with Rodgers, and then the team trades for Davante Adams when they have like a win or two, and that really ended up sealing the fate of the season of Garrett Wilson, but they're not trading for Davante Adams this year. He is comfortably inside of LA with the Rams and Sean McVay. He's also confidently inside of the C tier. We're about to talk about him. Again, drafting the Jets, it's like the Giants, right? When you take Malik Neighbors, there's a little bit of, you smell it, a little stink. Same thing goes with the Jets and Garrett Wilson. I guess it's just, MetLife just reeks to high heaven. So Garrett Wilson, the player, is good. It was his best year. If you look at Matt Harmon's reception perception, he was 94th percentile in success rate versus man, 82.4% success rate versus zone, 78.6% success rate versus press. Wilson is an awesome wideout and a dangerous separator at all 3 levels. I'm excited to see him in a new offense with more dynamic pre-snap development and an altered route tree. So again, Justin Fields is not the second coming of Mahomes. He's not the best quarterback in the NFL, but I think he will know where to throw the ball, and Garrett Wilson will be able to get it done on volume alone. Next up, we move on into the C tier here. So if you guys have enjoyed today's video thus far, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. Davante Adams of the LA Rams, wide receiver 10 in PPR points per game last season, wide receiver 11 in terms of PPR. He has had 9 straight seasons as a top 15 point per game wide receiver and 8 of 9 seasons inside of the top 12. Dick, Davante Adams is old. I know he's old, but a lot of the time, what we do as the fantasy community, people do, oh, he's too old, he can't do it again, right? Even though the motherfucker's been putting up crazy numbers since the first Donald Trump administration, that he's been doing it through multiple different administrations. He's been putting up these big numbers, okay? So don't panic when it comes to Davante Adams. I mean, these numbers are going all the way back to 2016, where he's basically a top 12 point per game finisher every single year. And when he was with the Jets last year, again, there was some high highs, there was some high lows, some low lows, but ultimately 13th in dominator rating, 17th in explosive rating, 30th in route win rate. He was 9th in targets, 14th in receptions, 15th in receiving yards, 13th at the wide receiver position in terms of total touchdowns. Unk still got it. He's in LA. Again, I don't want to sound like some Sean McVay dick rider. I don't want to sound like some Sean McVay glazer, but Sean McVay is truly one of the most elite play callers in the National Football League. Matthew Stafford is still a very competent quarterback, and you already know that Davante Adams is going to be getting a bunch of touchdown opportunities, and hopefully Kyren Williams doesn't steal them all, but I like Davante Adams a ton based on where he's going. Next up, we got JSN. Now, I am much lower on consensus on JSN. They lose Metcalf. They lose Tyler Lockett in my pocket skirt. So it's JSN, it's Cooper Kupp, it is MVS, and Torrey Horton, who here's a who. He was the wide receiver 9 last year in PPR, 20th in PPR points per game. I've always been a fan of JSN. I've always thought that he looked real silky out there running routes. I always thought he looked good, but he was kind of put down by the fact that the team had so many good wide receivers. Do I think that Cooper Kupp is fully washed? No, but he's definitely not the same Cooper Kupp that we have come accustomed to. JSN is the guy in Seattle. Do I trust Sam Darnold? Fuck no, baby. I think he's much more of a player that played super good because of the coaching. We kind of talked about that with Justin Jefferson, right? I really do believe that Kevin O'Connell is able to make these quarterbacks play better. I don't know how we're going to see Mono Man Sam perform in Seattle. Again, JSN wide receiver 12 in targets, 7th in receptions, 10th in receiving yards, only 6 total touchdowns, 30th, 4th in EPA, 17th in target separation. The guy's talented, but when you're in this range at the wide receiver position, I would much prefer JSN to be my wide receiver number 2 compared to my wide receiver number 1. If JSN's my wide receiver 1, I do not feel great about that again because I don't really trust Sam Darnold. And again, while I think Cooper Kupp's kind of washed, and while I'm not really investing at all in Cooper Kupp at ADP, Cooper Kupp could be stealing these value targets that you would normally be accustomed to JSN getting, the easy work. Terry McLaurin closes out this tier. Now, I love Terry McLaurin. I've been talking up Terry McLaurin since Dwayne Haskins, RIP, was the quarterback for Terry McLaurin. I've been talking up Terry McLaurin since the team was called the fucking Redskins, okay? Since they've been the football team, and now they're called the Commanders, right? Wide receiver 7 in PPR, 16 in PPR points per game. Now, if you look at this graphic on your screen right now, in terms of touchdowns last year, to me, was an anomaly. Like the CSGO player, receiving touchdowns, 13 last year. The seasons prior, 4, 5, 5, 4, and 7. Now, that could be because Jaden Stormy Daniels is really good and the offense is going to be percolating more. Sure, I can give him credit for that because I do believe he's clearly the best wide receiver in this offense. Fat boy Debo ain't overtaking Terry McLaurin. But that, to me, is a little bit concerning because when you're 19th in targets, 15th in receptions, and 12th in receiving yards, if you don't score 13 touchdowns and you instead are scoring 7 or just 8, or maybe it goes even worse and he only gets 5, you're looking at a really bad season out of Terry McLaurin. Now, I still think he's a great receiver. 9th in expected points added, 18th in fantasy points per out run, 9th in fantasy points per target, 6th in dominated rating, and I really like Jaden Daniels. We talked him up last season prior to him becoming the Jaden Daniels that everyone knows and loves now. So I like McLaurin. I like Jaden Daniels, but something just feels gross here with the touchdowns that makes me not as confident in Terry McLaurin as I would be if, he finished as like the wide receiver 16 last year in points per game and he scored 8 touchdowns, right? I would feel a whole lot better. Next up, we move into the 5th tier here with my wide receivers 19 through 23. In case you guys can't tell, the E tier and the F tier are going to be very, very big based on the fact that the D tier only contains 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 wide receivers. So the E tier, gigantic. The F tier, same thing can be said there. So we got Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, I was someone that was so heavily talking up Marvin Harrison Jr. I was talking about how Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the next Jamar Chase rookie year. This is going to be amazing. It's going to be beautiful. You just draft him. You don't even have to think twice about it. Despite the fact that I don't love the coaching situation with Jonathan Gannon in Arizona, it's just going to work. MHJ is Himothy. He's him. The tape is beautiful. And then MHJ gave us a different tape. It was a fucking sex tape where he fucked me in the ass, metaphorically, of course. Marvin Harrison Jr. was terrible last season. There are not a lot of metrics that I could pull up that are going to point towards MHJ being elite at the NFL level. But the thing is, we have become so accustomed to wide receivers in the first year coming into the NFL and jump-starting things instantly off Jump Street. Shout out to Channing Tatum, right? Out the jump, they're amazing. But sometimes it takes time. We saw the upside. Wide receiver 1 in week 2 up against the Rams. Wide receiver 4 up against the Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey in week number 8. But in between that greatness, there were games where he's scoring like 3 points. There was game up against the Packers where he didn't play a lot of the game, but he scored 0 points, right? There were very low lows. And the fact that there wasn't a lot of changes in the coaching staff, maybe they end up fucking this up again. Maybe they end up not using Marvin Harrison Jr. correctly. Maybe they just keep sending him on go routes saying, hey, fuck it. Just run out there, MHJ out there somewhere, Kyler throw it to him. Besides Trey McBride, there's not a lot of competition in this offense for targets. And the target accuracy was bad last year, 92nd. He was 15th in dominator rating. I think for me, it's hard to really make such a good argument about Marvin Harrison Jr. It's hard to do because when you look at everything, it just points towards, hey, Marvin Harrison Jr. sucked dick in his rookie year. But I think you just plug your nose. You believe in your player evaluation, right? Unless you just thought Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't going to be good. You just thought it was a fluke in college. You just watch the tape and you think he sucks. Then go ahead and fade him. But for me, I'm going to just do the eraser, Control-Alt-Delete last season, and just think positively about 2025 being a breakout year. Next up, we got Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, wide receiver 14 last year in PPR, 11 in PPR points per game, 11 straight seasons, every year in his NFL career, over 1,000 receiving yards, 6 of 11 seasons with 10 or more touchdowns. He has not finished outside the top 18 in points per game since 2017. Now, last year, it really did end up taking Chris Godwin to get hurt for Mike Evans to truly start having a much more promising season. But Chris Godwin's coming into the year probably not at 100% and could potentially miss a bunch of games. Especially if the Bucs are a good team. What I mean by that is, hey, if the Bucs start off the year 3-0, and it's like, oh, maybe Godwin comes back. I don't know when their bye week is. Say, oh, think of week 5. And then they get to week 5, and maybe they're 4-1. And then, maybe now we don't have to rush Godwin back. And hey, look how good Egbuka looks, right? And then maybe they kind of keep pushing the Godwin narrative down. And that's why Godwin isn't ranked as high as I would like to, due to the fact that he is banged up. But again, do I love Mike Evans this season as much as I did in the past? No. But we got to just look at the numbers. Again, basically every single year, every year he's getting over 1,000 yards. Basically half the seasons he's scoring 10 or more touchdowns. And he hasn't really been a bust for a long time in terms of ADP. So you just continue to draft him. He's just a safe asset, right? You compare him to MHJ. Evans is like wrapping your team in fucking, what is that called? Saran wrap, right? You're putting him in some bubble wrap. And, MHJ is like raw dogging some chick you found for $7 on the red light district, okay? 14th in yards per team pass attempt, 13th in yards per route run, 11th in contested catch rate. He scored 11 touchdowns last year, over 1,000 receiving yards. You just kind of know what you're getting out of Evans. Next up, we got Wiki DJ Moore of the Chicago Bears. Not good last season. I was very much on the DJ Moore bandwagon. I was the conductor of the DJ Moore Express. Choo-choo! And he did not pay off at all. Wide receiver 29 in points per game. Seasons highlighted on your screen are going to be his seasons in Chicago. Wide receiver 9 in 2023. Last year, not as lucky. The addition of Ben Johnson should really help give a boost to this offense. Hit him with a little revive, right? Pack a punch the offense of sorts. And I'm excited about that. What I'm not super excited about is the fact that we're kind of hearing these reports from DJ Moore himself being like, I'm not too sure how this offense is going to work. Am I still the guy? That's kind of concerning. The fact that earlier on in the offseason, I was hearing maybe they're going to trade him. That concerns me. But when push comes to shove, he's still the wide receiver 1 on the Bears We expect Caleb to look better. We expect the offense to look better. So while I'm not going to push all my chips into the center of the table like I did last year for DJ Moore, I'm also not pulling directly out. Again, if you get 140 targets and don't even get 98 receptions, that's not the best. Same thing with 140 targets. He didn't even get 1,000 receiving yards, only 6 total touchdowns. But he was 4th in juke rate, 5th in target separation. So he was getting open. I'm very hopeful for Rome Odunze. I like the fact that they drafted Colston Loveland. I like the fact that they drafted the other wide receiver, Luther Burden. But DJ Moore still probably will be the #1 receiver on this offense. Next up, we got DK Metcalf. Now, this is a team that loses George Pickens. They bring in Aaron Rodgers, and based on what you saw out of Aaron Rodgers, wasn't the most comforting thing last season. Now, you did see some solid performances, right? It wasn't like he was just so bad, but he also definitely, if you were like a Jets fan, you had to have just been pissed off based on what you were sold, right? It's like you were sold, like someone told you, oh, I got you an authentic jersey, right? Oh, I got you an authentic Aaron Rodgers jersey, and then you get it, and it was made in China, and instead of being green, it's like yellow, right? Or instead of green, it's red, right? I ordered a Devils jersey from China, and it ended up, instead of saying Taylor Hall, this was a bunch of years ago, it said Taylor Home on the back, like it was a home jersey, had the correct number. You know, that's kind of what it felt like for them. So they were kind of sold a bit of a lie. Now, Metcalf has never really been a guy that I've trusted in fantasy. I've been a DK Metcalf detractor for years. I've been telling you guys to run like Forrest Gump, Jenny, right? Keep on running, and it kept working. You just kept fading him. You were dodging the bullets, because while the guy looked like a freak, while the guy is fast as fuck, while the guy has those high of highs, he never really was able to be consistent. But now in Pittsburgh, around Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, there just isn't competition. Arthur Smith has a smooth brain, so that does concern me in a way, but I feel like Aaron Rodgers is just going to focus in on DK Metcalf and feed him. Not a lot from last season to take away from, though he was 10th in explosive rating, 24th yards per target, 16th in yards per reception. Much less competition here, though, compared to Seattle. Final guy here is going to be Courtland Sutton, wide receiver, 27 in points per game last year, 15 in PPR. Now, Courtland Sutton's another guy that we're going to do the exercise that we did with Ladd McConkey earlier, and that's going to be looking at the first half versus the second half. Weeks 1 through week 8, you had Courtland Sutton. He was averaging 9.7 PPR points per game. 9.7 PPR points per game. You can pick up some random fucker off the waiver wire. Your kicker is probably outscoring Courtland Sutton. No bueno. But then, weeks 9 through 18, 18.1 PPR points per game. You're probably not finding that consistently off the waiver wire, right? So when Bo Nix started to develop more as a quarterback, as Bo Nix continued to get better, Courtland Sutton was able to rise up in this offense and play much better. Now, the Broncos draft Pat Bryant. They have Marvin Mims, Devon Vell, Troy Franklin. They have some other pieces, but Sutton is still the wide receiver 1. Evan Ingram coming in does definitely concern me, and it is kind of what keeps Sutton in the D tier instead of the C tier, because again, I am ecstatic based on what I saw towards the end of last season. I'm very confident in Sean Payton. I'm very confident in Courtland Sutton as the player, and I'm confident in Bo Nix. The addition of Ingram does concern me a little bit, but Sutton's the wide receiver 1 on this team. If he's your flex option, you're feeling real nicey about that. And as your wide receiver 2, you're feeling pretty good as well. Like in terms of safety, I actually think Sutton and Evans are probably the safest guys inside of this tier. Now we move on into the E tier, and the E tier just has so many names. It's my wide receiver 24 through 34. So there's 10 wide receivers inside the E tier. 6th tier, the E tier, is headlined by Tatoria McMillan, T-Mac, as he wants to be called. 8th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft out of Arizona. He played 12 games in 2024 as a 21-year-old, 84 receptions for 1,319 yards and 8 touchdowns. Bryce Young last year comes out the gate atrocious, gets benched for Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton gets in a car accident. Bada bing, bada boom. Step inside the room. Bryce Young is back. Bryce Young plays really well to finish out the season. They had some great games out of Adam Thielen. No one else there really did live up to expectations outside of Chuba Hubbard, of course. Tet McMillan, to me, feels like the clear wide receiver 1 out the gate for day 1. Now, Can we trust Bryce Young? Am I ready to fully trust him yet? No. But I do trust my eyes, and my eyes show me that Bryce Young looked good towards the end of last season and that McMillan's tape looks good. I believe he's the clear best wide receiver on this team from day one, and that's going to garner him potentially a boatload of targets based upon how murky the wide receiver room is in Carolina, which gets him a top 24 ranking. And number 25, we got DeVonta Smith. Now, everything that we talked about with A.J. Brown is the exact same shit we're to talk about with DeVonta Smith. Is DeVonta Smith really good? Yes, but he's on a really run-heavy offense. He is on the most run-heavy offense, in my opinion. That's how I'd project them to be in 2025. And with the fact that they have A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Saquon, and Jalen Hurts, the touchdowns aren't really going to just be gift wrap to DeVonta Smith. Now, to me, I think he's probably going to finish higher than the wide receiver 25. But the reason why I have him ranked here is because what am I really getting out of DeVonta Smith? I just get a guy that I think is super safe. I could see Ted McMillan, if everything goes right, I can try and paint the picture, hey, he finishes way higher than this. He's a top 12 receiver. Juwan Jennings, I can make that argument for. I can't really make that for DeVonta Smith unless other things were to happen around the team, right? A.J. Brown gets hurt or Saquon Barkley gets hurt, knock on wood, something like that, right? That would heavily elevate up DeVonta Smith. And in my opinion, two of his better games from last year were without A.J. Brown. And two of those games were where he had 10 plus targets and he only had 3 of those on the season. So that's concerning. Right? If you're not able to get that many targets per game because the fact that the team runs the ball so much, that is concerning. Again, is he a bad pick because he's going to fuck your team over? No, he's just a bad pick to me because he goes higher than this and he's just a safe pick. I don't really see the upside of DeVonta Smith. Next up, we got Juwan Jennings. Now, NBC's Matt Moyaco reports that 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan indicated that wide receiver Brandon Ayuk will start the season on the PUP with the torn ACL and MCL he suffered in Week 7 last season, which indicates that Juwan Jennings, coming out the gate, I've said coming out the gate to start the season, week numero uno, he will be the wide receiver 1. And we saw Juwan Jennings percolate last season. He had a game in week 3 up against the Rams where he was the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 15 up against the Bucs, wide receiver 7 up against Tariq Woolen and the Seahawks, and the wide receiver 6 up against the Chicago Bears. The 49ers have the easiest schedule in the NFL. They don't have Deebo Samuel anymore. CMC is going to be back, so the offense is going to be able to move the ball more, which puts more position for Juwan Jennings to score touchdowns. Now, I don't think Juwan Jennings, Calvin Johnson in the red zone. He's going to get like 15 plus touchdowns, but I could easily see him getting a similar target number as he did last season with 113. I just think that he's going to be able to play better with the offense being able to utilize him more. Now, Ricky Pearsall did pop towards the end of last season. He also got popped before the season, sadly getting shot, but he's still breathing. He's A-okay. And he got his Rolex back. Shout out to Ricky Pearsall. But I do think Juwan Jennings is the wide receiver 1 on this offense. And if you're worried about Ayuk, the best thing you could do with Jennings is, if that's going to worry you, you just draft Jennings, and after 5 weeks of him playing great, you just trade him. He's going to be some elite trade bait. 20th in efficiency stats, 20th in route win rate, 17th in fantasy points per out run, 22nd explosive rating, 4th in contested catch rate, and 27th in dominator rating for Juwan Jennings. Next up is Zay Flowers. Now, I like Zay Flowers. I talked him up last year, but the same thing we talked about with DeVonta Smith is here with Zay Flowers. This is a very run-heavy team, an incredibly run-heavy team, and they have other red zone weapons as well, like Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and Zay Flowers is left out to dry in that scenario. Only 4 total touchdowns last season. The Ravens ranked 2nd in run play percentage. Now, they have Rashad Bateman, who did play a lot better last season. They got D-Hop. He's still the wide receiver 1. There's no arguing against that. But back-to-back seasons with 100-plus targets and 4 and 5 receiving touchdowns, finishing outside the top 30 in points per game twice. He's a big game guy, right? If you have to play him any given week, he could score 30-plus points. He can, but he's never going to do that consistently. And because the touchdowns are so hard to find for him, I don't think it's smart to rank him higher. Next up, we got Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans, wide receiver, 28 PPR last year, 41 in PPR points per game. He had 3 top 12 games last season, but I believe that that's just an offense that was limp dick, right? That is a watered down version of what they want to be doing with Brian Callahan. Cam Ward is now the starting quarterback of the team, getting rid of Will Levis, who literally can't read a children's book out there. Ridley's the guy. They've got Lockett. They've got Van Jefferson. They drafted Ayamor as well, which is cool, right? I think he's an interesting player. But let's be real here. They don't have a clear wide receiver outside of Calvin Ridley that's going to be getting targets. And Calvin Ridley got a lot of targets. They were trying to get him the ball. The problem is the quarterback play was so bad. He was 9th in explosive rating, 10th in yards per reception, 1st in unrealized air yards. He had over 1,000, almost 1,100 unrealized air yards, and he was 91st in target accuracy. So if you think the offense is going to get better, you probably want to buy low on Calvin Ridley. Next up, we got Stephon Diggs. Now, if you're worried about the injury, Diggs has already participated in on-field work in uniform without a brace on the right knee that he injured. He is on an offense with Kyle Williams, DeMario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Matt Collins, Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk. No one that is going to take his swag and become the wide receiver 1. He was the wide receiver 18 in PPR points per game last season and 15 plus PPR points per game in 5 straight seasons. I'm a believer in Drake May. Now, I think the Patriots are getting a little bit too much praise from the media as a whole. I think Vrabel's a better coach than what they had last season, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots just didn't live up to the expectation that a lot of people are setting on them because they're putting too high of expectations on them. But Diggs is the wide receiver 1 here. He does it in Minnesota. He plays well. He plays great in Buffalo with Josh Allen. And then he plays great last year with CJ Stroud when healthy. So what makes us really think that he's just terrible now? Again, he's coming off the injury. Maybe he starts off slower, but he was able to finish last year. He was the wide receiver 9 up against the Colts, wide receiver 15 against the Vikings, wide receiver 15 against the Jaguars, wide receiver 13 against the Patriots. He has top 12, top 18 upside. 4 of 8 games, he had over 18 points per game, 8th in route win rate, 18th in true catch rate, 26th in target separation. In my opinion, Unk still got it. Next up, we got Jalen Waddle away, waddle, till the very next day. Now, we talked about Tyreek Hill earlier and how last season went really wrong for Tyreek Hill, right? Tyreek Hill was drafted super highly. Everyone was touting him as this clear top 3 receiver, and it doesn't end up paying off. Jalen Waddle was talked up as this elite wide receiver 2, and he's a big fat bust as the wide receiver 55 in PPR points per game. But prior to that, he's the wide receiver 21, 17, and 15 in points per game with over 1,000 yards in every single season. And they lose Jonnu Smith. So if Tua can stay healthy, we're going to see a lot more consistent targets for Jalen Waddle. A lot of these design screen plays were actually going to Jonnu Smith instead of to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, which is impossible this year because Jonnu is now in Pittsburgh. Waddle was still 14th in route win rate, 39th in target separation. So I think last year was kind of just a bad run out for Jalen Waddle. And again, another guy that has that freak crazy upside weekly. Next up, we got Jacoby Myers of the Las Vegas Raiders. Back-to-back seasons for the Raiders inside of the top 24 in points per game with subpar quarterback play. Now, do I think Geno Smith's like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? No. But he is better than the quarterback play that Jacoby Myers has had over the last couple of years. 15th in contested catch percentage and 19th in EPA. They've got Jack Bash. They draft Tom Thornton as well. They have Trey Tucker the fucker, but Jacoby Myers is that guy. They also have Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers has never been this receiving touchdown vulture, right? There were points in his career where he just couldn't find the end zone at all. You guys remember that, but Jacoby Myers has been over-reliable. Again, back-to-back years inside the top 24, going well outside the top 30 at the wide receiver position. Again, if you're looking for just some safety at the wide receiver position late, I think he has that, and I think he also does have big upside if Pete Carroll is able to really turn this ship around and the offense is able to look 10 times better than what we've seen over the last couple of years, where they are just one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Due mainly to the fact that the quarterback play was so bad. Next up, we got Jerry Jeudy of the Cleveland Browns. Now, they bring in Deontay Johnson. They have Cedric Tillman, who's going to be fully healthy. The biggest concern for Jeudy is, was this a fluke? Because over his NFL career, he really has been a letdown outside of 2022 and last season. And the quarterback situation is gross with Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, Shadur Sanders. But Jerry Jeudy has earned the right to be the wide receiver one on the team. And when your team is as bad as the Browns and you're down bad like the Browns are going to be in games, you're going to have to throw the ball deep into the game, which just adds additional upside for Jerry Jeudy. Again, we've always thought the talent was there coming out of college. It just never really was able to ferment itself inside of the NFL. Again, outside of two out of 5 seasons were pretty good. The other 3, not so much. Next up, we got Chris Godwin. The Buccaneers spoke to the media after day 1 of mandatory minicamp, and head coach Tom Bowles gave an update on Godwin, who is not participating and only appeared in the sidelines towards the end of the practices. He is rehabbing inside right now, doing everything inside. When the trainers tell me he's ready to go outside, we'll take a look at him outside. So there's not a lot of reports. His week 1 status to me does seem in doubt. So we'll see what happens. If you can give me, hey, he's going to be ready by like week 6 at 100%, I'm going to be taking the shots on him. But in fantasy football, the injury bug is going to find you. The injuries are going to find you, and they are going to tear apart your fantasy team. So a good rule of thumb is just don't chase the injuries down. So if Chris Godwin starts falling, or if we start getting more positive inclinations, more positive news, then yeah, you should be drafting Chris Godwin based on his wide receiver 2 point per game finish last season, where he's 21st in target separation, 16th yards per out run, 1st in target accuracy, 6th in yards per team pass attempt, 9th in true catch rate, where he's really good. You should buy into that. But with the injury, there's reasons to not rank him higher. Final guy inside this tier is going to be GP George Pickens. Now, Pickens is another guy where there's not a lot of great statistics just in terms of pure yards, pure receptions, pure total touchdowns, but he was 3rd in explosive rating last year, 15th yards per team pass attempt, 14th in yards per reception. Last year was his best season according to Matt Harmon for these metrics. He was 72.8% success rate versus man coverage and 77.6% success rate versus press. 8th percentile. He says there were some low moments, as we all know, but overall last year was his best season in the NFL by a wide margin. He was a significantly improved player on film, which I agree, and it does definitely help him that he fits into a role next to CeeDee Lamb. So to me, we're going to get a good look on how really is George Pickens. For years, he shows up and then he just disappears for weeks in a row. But maybe this will be the year in Dallas where he finally is able to figure things out. And Dak Prescott, again, pretty underrated. Final tier here, we got Jameson Williams, Rome Odunze, Xavier Worthy, Jordan Addison-Ray, Chris Olave, and Khalil Shakir. We're to keep things very simple here. Jameson Williams broke out last season. Jameson Williams had his best season yet, and I like what I saw out of Jameson Williams. But we talked about this earlier with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Ben Johnson leaving, I don't think is going to be the dagger into the end of Amon-Ra, the dagger into the end of Jahmyr Gibbs. But that could, the different kind, not being able to be as intricate with the play calls, could be the death of Montgomery. It could be a metaphorical death of Jameson Williams. Now, Jameson Williams still has that big play upside. So yeah, I'm fine drafting him as my flex option, but where he's going right now in a lot of drafts is a little ridiculous. 5th in yards per target, 6th in yards per reception, 11th in target separation, 19th in route win rate. Again, the guy is good. He's really good. But last year kind of seemed like a top percentage run out for Jameson Williams. Next up, we got Rome Odunze. Now, another guy where just really wasn't that good at all. But in terms of percentage of open air yards that were uncatchable, he ranked 2nd. 48% of his open air yards were not catchable. Caleb hopefully gets better in 2025. Ben Johnson adds more to the offense. And that does make me a little bit more excited to see what we get out of Rome Odunze in year 2. Next up, we got Xavier Worthy. Now, Xavier Worthy is another one of these guys where it's a true tale of 2 seasons. Early on, he can't figure shit out. End of the season, he really starts percolating. With Rashee Rice, he's virtually a 0. Once they lose Rashee Rice and they start force-feeding him the ball, getting him all these designed plays, he starts to play well. 70.2% of Xavier Worthy's targets last season traveled 9 yards or fewer downfield. Rashee Rice is expected to be good to go for week 1. In terms of efficiency, Worthy was god-awful. 76th in yards per route run, 94th in yards per target, 88th in yards per reception, 98th in true catch rate, 70th in explosive rating. So very cautious when it comes to drafting Xavier Worthy, in my opinion. Next up, we got Jordan Addison Ray of the cold like Minnesota Vikings. Quarterback change, I think, doesn't really impact Justin Jefferson, but it could be worse for a guy like Jordan Addison. The fact that TJ Hawkinson's going to be more healthy also does concern me enough with Jordan Addison to not be super overzealous with my ranking as my wide receiver 38. Then we got Chris Olave, and I love Chris Olave. He never really has been the guy I've expected him to be at the NFL level. But there's a lot of people to blame. You can blame the injury gods for just destroying him last year. He suffered 2 concussions last season, missing 1 game with one and 9 games with the second one he suffered just 3 weeks after the initial one. 30th in target separation, 20th in yards per route run, 28th in yards per target, 1st in contested catch rate. I like Olave, but if the quarterbacks are the quarterbacks that they have right now, like Tyler Shuck being the quarterback one, I don't really want to be drafting Chris Olave. And then we got Khalil Shakir of the Buffalo Bills. Khalil Shakira, wide receiver 37 in PPR, 37 in PPR points per game. Best wide receiver on the Bills, but this isn't a team that wants to condense the wide receiver targets to like, hey, you know the ball's going to Shakir 8-9 times a game. That's just not going to happen. Keon Coleman could break out. There's talks of some other wide receivers on the team as well. Mims, they're talking him up. So again, with Shakir not really having the build of this guy that's going to score 1 million touchdowns, with the fact that they have Ray Davis, Josh Allen, James Cook for the goal line, Shakir just feels like, again, one of those like later safe bets at wide receiver. If you load it up on running backs early and maybe draft the quarterback super early and you need like this super safe flex, sure, Shakir is good for that, but in terms of being like a league winner, I don't really see it. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. While you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. I love you a long time. Check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen already. Have a great one. As always, good boy.